You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody, the podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. We're going to jump right into it today with my guest. He is an incredibly deep person. I was wholly unprepared for where the conversation went. He has been an Idahoan his entire life. He's an avid hunter. He's an avid animal person, animal expert, in fact, as you'll find out. He has a pet coyote, has had multiple, in fact. And more than anything, he always struck me as somebody who I'd really like to talk to, and he did not disappoint. Incredible depth of thought and nuance with his thinking. But I was just so pleased to get time with him. This is definitely going to be the first of many. But without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Seth Simpson.
Man, I don't typically eat breakfast.
What do you mean you don't eat breakfast?
Well, everyone knows that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And for some reason, I just am not in the habit of, I wake up and I got a bunch of dogs that need to be taken care of and they're ready to eat breakfast. So the first thought of my day is, my eyes open, got to go feed breakfast to the dogs. And then 2 hours pass by and I've done a couple things and then I'm hungry and, I just kind of snack lightly throughout the day. I've never been a big eater, just on the go.
Well, I could imagine you're not like a really rotund individual.
I
imagine
just,
you eat sparsely.
my friends say I'm legs and lungs.
Yeah.
Just built for hiking.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you do, when you go on hunts, they got to be you got to be going like 5-10 miles.
Minimum, yeah. Yeah. It's not like the hunting I do typically. There's big game hunting where you're going 12-15 miles a day on average. It's not quite that intense. The places I'm hunting aren't quite the steep mountains, but I do on average get a lot of physical activity. I pride myself in my health because that's all you got when it's all said and done.
It's really all you got. Speaking of that, so I'm not a huge breakfast guy either. I usually crush a Honeycrisp apple because I had this thing when I was I think I was 37, and I finally had a freak out because I like apples, but I had just been beaten down by the world of half applesauce, mushy, red delicious. And I'm I can't do it because I've had one good red apple in my life, and every apple you see in a cartoon is this beautiful red. It's you want to like the red, and finally I was I can't do this, and then obviously
but you've had good apples.
I've had good apples, and that's the thing. I'm a huge apple guy. But I finally broke it. I was you know what, dude? I'm 37. I'm reasonably successful. I'm going to get the bougie apple that I like. So I have my ritual is black coffee and one Honeycrisp apple every
Do you go
morning.
and get it from the local store, or how do you get your
So, all right, we used to go to Costco, but they don't have the Honeycrisp. They did have this Cosmic Opal that was this yellow apple, but it had some bite to it. I was oh, that's good. And again, I try all different kinds of apples, but I generally get them at nothing crazy. Winco generally has them, and then Albertsons has them. But
man, around here during the fall apple season, we got all these orchards. Just right over here, and a friend of mine, actually, his family owns an orchard in Emmett, and all the farmers markets, all the orchards are selling them. It is just apple heaven. And
I had no idea.
I'll be eating 5 or 6 apples a day. Orchards are actually really big here in Idaho. Vineyards and wine orchards, obviously, but fruit orchards, apples are huge, and pears, I guess our climate is good for that. So you get out around Lake Lowell, you'll see a lot of fruit orchards. Emmett has quite a few. There's not quite very many at all around Eagle that I can think of, but there's big ones out in other areas. So the farmers markets obviously aren't year-round local, but when it's going, man, I do eat multiple apples a day.
I had no idea. I'm gonna have to find out who your buddy is because I love fresh.
Yeah.
Crisp, locally grown apples. I had a buddy
Spyglass Gardens.
Spyglass Gardens?
Place, yeah.
All right. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who was doing, I'm big into jiu-jitsu, and he was teaching jiu-jitsu in Rainier in Washington, right? Yeah. So he was literally living on this ranch, this kind of guest house thing. And as far as the eye could see was just agricultural stuff. And it was, again, a little town center, had some restaurants and stuff, but it was all apples. And they had the most bomb apples ever. I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah. No, just, you're into jiu-jitsu, so you're into health. You must eat fairly clean.
I try. I eat really basic. right?
Yeah.
So
well, that's what I do, man.
Right.
I eat the most. I mean, I probably eat the most basic of diets. I don't try to like adhere to anything in particular. And like if Oreo cookies are on the table, I'll definitely be the first to have a few. Like I'm not weird about it, but I do try to eat very like we drink raw milk. I probably drink close to a half gallon of raw milk a day. I've always loved milk, and then we got into I've always known and I've had raw milk all my life, but we didn't drink it exclusively. And then the past couple of years, just really, really truly learning the health benefits of it instead of just someone just telling you it's healthier, but really learning the differences between raw and pasteurized, and the difference between A1 and A2 milk, which is kind of interesting. I'll share. Cows have been bred to produce milk for quite a while, especially modern day farming. Yeah. When you get, typically most of your milk is going to come from a Holstein cow. If you drive by the average dairy in Idaho, they're all Holstein cows, black and white. And their milk is classified as A1. And I don't remember the scientific word that abbreviates, but basically the protein structure, the structure of the protein in that milk is different than quote unquote original cow's milk. So then you get a breed like a Guernsey cow, or maybe a certain bloodline of Jersey cow. They're going to have a different type of protein in their milk. So someone who's lactose intolerant and has been drinking pasteurized A1 milk their whole life could drink a tall glass of A2 raw milk and be good to go. There's tons of great in that raw milk. There's tons of great probiotics and stuff for your gut health, and it's just clean protein and fat that your body can readily use as soon as it hits your stomach. And so
Man,
it really
I'm really curious, but like I'm terrified if you're wrong. Like,
right? Yeah, I know. And so a lot of
pretty rough on
are
milk.
you lactose? Okay,
Yeah,
so our
absolutely.
friends are the same way. And just a year ago, I was trying. Our friends like we're lactose intolerant, not worth the risk. I don't want to.
Right. This is.
Yeah.
I'm like that
And
sounds
we
really
finally
interesting, Seth.
We finally got them to do it, and they got a gallon of milk in their house at all times now.
Holy cow!
Very interesting.
I mean,
So
quite literally, I guess.
yeah. So you can get A2 milk pasteurized. A lot of grocery stores are starting to sell it. Personally, the unpasteurized is my go-to. There's such a negative connotation around it. We've kind of been when you hear that, it sounds unsafe. It sounds gross. We must pasteurize it for a reason, and to mass produce it and ship it all across the world. It is a good practice. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you see the differences and what's in them and really dive into that research, it's worth a try for sure.
I'll have to check it out. I'll have to find out where this A2 secret milk is. Because if I could crush a glass of milk with no concern,
life changing. I really hope you do, and then get back to me and let me know.
I just really want chocolate milk, honestly. I have such fond memories as a kid.
It's an inside joke between me and my friends and my wife. I love chocolate milk, yeah.
Dude, it's great. I mean, and like I was just unrepentant, right? So like I had like the Hershey syrup. It's not even chocolate syrup. It's chocolate flavored because there's no cocoa. Yeah, exactly. And I would just like, as a kid, just like and just. Same. Oh, it was good.
Still, every now and then, I won't. Just like the Oreo on the table, I'll cheat and have some delicious Hershey syrup chocolate milk anytime.
Yeah, I'm. the more I focus on diet, and again, I go really basic. Like I'm talking, I make my own beans, so like I soak them overnight, and then I'm a big fan of like pinto beans. I'll mess around with turtle beans, but like I'm really just a pinto guy. But like rice and beans and basic proteins, I'm really not a fancy guy. But I'm also I also steer away from like gluten, from flour. But I've heard very similar to the A1, A2 issue with milk, that if you get heirloom style flour, stuff that hasn't been like insanely modified along the way, then it's totally easy for you to eat because it's not
the base product, just like this Holstein cow. It's just like the seed of wheat. It's just the same as the other one technically, but they've just been genetically modified is such a buzzword in everything is genetically modified.
Horticulture was the original like when you're
when you're intentionally breeding two different things, you're genetically modifying them.
Right.
But they've been modified to do well in certain climates and certain growing periods and be resistant to this and that. And so when it all comes down to it, that cow and that seed of wheat are producing very different things, and what you're consuming is totally different.
Right.
The fruits and vegetables that we consume at the standard grocery store, that tomato, its nutritional content is so different than an heirloom tomato that is the same as it was 100 years ago, which is interesting. So then you're at the store and you're eating all your fruits and vegetables, but you might still actually be lacking in some nutrition because it might not all be there as much as you wish it would.
Right, because of nutrient density and like the vitamin density and variety too. Because our diets classically, at least it's my understanding. It's not like I was around 200 years ago, but for a long time we didn't just eat one thing. We weren't like monocrop. We weren't like, okay, I'm going to eat this. Like I was watching a documentary on these potatoes, this Argentinian potato farmer, right, living up in the mountains and everything. You eat these wild potatoes that you would never see. They all kind of look like fingerling, all different colors, like these purple potatoes and red potatoes, and his diet consisted of potatoes every single day, but he had so many different types.
And imagine the soil that they're being grown in. Just the nutritional content of that potato is so different than the Idaho potatoes that are being mass produced in massive quantities. Just a totally different thing. And the soil that's being planted and harvested for 50 years. Everything changes, and as humans we think we can fix everything and make a solution and add this and that and we'll be all right. But really you got to think about making things a little simpler.
Yeah. That was a big push in, I don't know if you ever read Michael Pollan. He's a food author, but one of his pieces of advice is kind of like, look, get away from trying to find the silver bullet. Like, get away from trying to find that one thing you need to add to your diet or like this one supplement. He's like, just eat a mass variety and make sure most of it is grown. Whereas like, have protein. Yeah, sure. Like have animal, have milk, have, beef, whatever you want. But also eat a large quantity of normally grown things. And
just
you're probably going to be okay.
Worry more about the source of the food. As long as it's, good, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of, you could apply that to life in general, just trying to not get hyper-focused on anything that's the missing link to your life, but instead just try to simplify everything. And if it's simple, it fits in the puzzle of your life. And if it's a little too complicated, you might pass on it.
But look, I struggle with this so much because who's the person that you value that is like this famous admirable person who's like, oh yeah, I really lead a balanced life. Like, man, no, it's not searching for Bobby Fischer's brother, the guy who was kind of good at chess, but kind of good at it's like, we love the Bobby Fischer. We love the Michael Jordan. We love the people, like somebody told me about it. I really enjoy chess. Somebody's like, oh, you got to watch the Queen's Gambit, this, first female grandmaster or whatever it was. I haven't seen it, but like, I can't we hero worship, or some people do. I try not to, but we kind of hero worship these people that are totally savants, like totally just
even the people that are putting themselves in the position to help you, whether it's influencer on social media or whether it's your therapist. It's not normalized for us to think, all right, here's this person giving me information. This person could be spot on with the information they're giving you, but if it's coming from not coming from experience, then it's just regurgitated information that they've heard from someone else. They're not giving you
knowledge
or knowledge that they've learned. And man, it just seems like with modern day, with the easy access to cameras and videos, there's just so much, so many people, so many talking heads telling you information and how they live their life. And this is what I do. But then if you really could see into those people's lives and what their day to day is, you probably wouldn't really be envious of what they're doing. You wouldn't consider them your mentor in any sense of the word. You just imagine that everyone sees something else, thinks, oh, that's better than what I'm doing. It looks a little better, looks shiny and new. I need to be doing that. But in reality, that's just because someone's telling you something doesn't mean that they're the one to be listening to.
Right. Or you're observing one tiny slice. For instance, jiu-jitsu. I've done jiu-jitsu for a long time. I'm a huge fan. It's part of my life, right? Like as much as
after hearing people talk about jiu-jitsu and seeing some of my friends, go through that journey, you can't say anything, but it doesn't benefit anyone except somewhat good in some areas. But yeah.
Right. And well, I mean, I think it's a really complex thing, right? Because it offers people a very strong sense of social engagement. It offers people a very strong intellectual engagement. It offers them physical fitness.
It allows you some struggle that you might not be
Yes.
engaging in your day-to-day life. Without some struggle, you don't really have any confidence in yourself because you don't think you can get through anything. And if you're lucky enough to have a life with not a lot of struggle or discomfort, putting yourself out there to experience that and you versus you type of experience is going to help you a lot.
Right. Super. And again, that's another thing. It offers you a chance to engage in attempting mastery and through that, this enormous struggle. So when I was a younger man, I'm actually really good at it. It was one of the things that stuck out to me. I'm like, oh, you have like a real natural aptitude for this for whatever reason. I'm good at the 3D spatial awareness. There are all these really random reasons why it all comes together. I also have a memory like a steel trap. Mm-hmm. But the people that, and I got very excited about that as a younger person, like, oh my gosh, maybe I could be like a pro jiu-jitsu fighter. And I saw all these people that I admired and they were incredible, like beyond belief. Couldn't imagine how I'd ever get that good. But just to your point, if you started to peel back just 1 or 2 layers of who they were or outside of jiu-jitsu, when they're just walking down the street, what they experienced, what their interpersonal relationships were, if they had other things, you'd see occasionally somebody who was very good but then got injured and that was it. They were never able to go back. Nothing to fall back on. You're broken in half by like 35.
They made it their identity.
Right.
And when it couldn't be their identity anymore, what is there to do? And it's funny that you bring that up because me and my friends have been having some conversations, me and my wife especially. You see people and they have a common interest. They're into what you're into. You would hope that you could at least be friends with that person. And then when you peel away those layers, you think, it's not quite what I hoped or expected. Right. You almost have to learn to, not dive too deep into people, or at least take it slow, and really try to get to know people. That way you don't, maybe someone isn't quite aligned with your morals or values, or you don't quite get along. Well, you can still, learn from what they have to offer. You can still be friends with them on a base level and enjoy your hobbies or whatever you're into. But yeah, just because their identity is something doesn't mean that that is really them or that they are who you think they might be. Right.
Or they're even worthy of your companionship. For instance, back to jiu-jitsu, there are plenty of black belts in the world, very skilled people that are just terrible people. Mm-hmm. And people that are aspiring jiu-jitsu fighters fall into these dynamics with them where they get taken advantage of. The aspiring student, lets go a lot of bad behavior, and they don't call the person out. It's like, this person just happens to be good at like pool or like shuffleboard. Like, they're not, just because they're good at jiu-jitsu doesn't mean they have like the secret to life.
One of the best guys in jiu-jitsu that I see on social media, top of the top, best of the best, is just a fool on social media. Loves to start crap with other people and
wait, who's this?
Drama.
Who's this?
Gordon
Ryan.
Yeah. And so I see this guy, I'm like, oh, this is pretty entertaining. Like, he's not wrong in a lot of situations, but you only have so much energy that you can be putting into your life or into your hobbies or this. So anytime you're putting your energy into useless drama, there's no respect in that. There's no honor or fame in that. So some people get to be the best, they feel like they're in the position to criticize or insult other people.
Right.
You know,
It's like
humble.
Gordon Ryan really is phenomenal at jiu-jitsu.
Like, it seems
but
like
it's
he's the best. It seems like
why
he can
would
beat
you,
anybody, but if
why would you ever listen to his political criticisms? It's like, you are a jiu-jitsu fighter. Like, what do you know about international politics? And I'm not saying you can't know something, but like, what are the odds?
Who are you to give who are you to be telling your followers, look at this, have this feeling towards this current event, or have this feeling towards this person? Like, people get a little bit of attention, then all of a sudden they think they got something to say, and that their word is law, and they're the expert on things. But then if you could imagine that guy, say he was like so many other athletes that you see that are humble and just never beating on their chest, never pointing to anyone else, just on their grind. Even if they aren't as good, they gain a lot of respect. They're that role model that you're talking about, and sometimes the people that are the best and in the spotlight, they aren't actually the best. Best is a broad word, and
they're the best at gaining attention.
The best at getting attention, but not the best at helping other humans through life and using their success and platform for something benefiting other people. Yeah.
It's kind of a catch-22, because really, to build a platform as like an influencer, right? And again, would not even remotely put myself in that category, but to be one of the big influencers in, let's say, health or mental well-being, you have to have a degree of like arrogance and
to compete and like fit in with that.
Because it's such a weird world, and you have to do things like Gordon Ryan's doing to just really be edgy.
That could be, I feel like, in sports, it could in health or wellness, in hunting. It seems that degree of arrogance does get you more attention. Having that arrogant persona. But when you think about it in the music that we listen to and the movies that we watch, just the media we consume, that is, glorified. That is who wins. That is, who gets that top spot more often than not. And people are impressionable. They just they just do what they think is going to get them there. And but it's just interesting to be aware. And when you say an influencer, and you don't take a claim to that, nobody should, but there's different ways of influencing. A podcast like this is influencing your community a lot more than an Instagram page of this or that. I have quite a few followers on Instagram, and I got that organically, just posting kind of out there stuff. When I was most involved in social media, it was a lot different than social media is now. Now everything is designed to go viral, and if you kind of play along with, like Instagram, for example, if you make the reels and you set your account up a certain way, you'll go viral. Instagram might pay you, but you're gonna have to look at everyone else making these reels, or this doctor saying things this way. Well, they got all these views, so I'm gonna copy that, and you just see everybody doing the same exact thing.
Right.
And it's just a trip if you're kind of aware of it and watching from the sidelines. It's interesting.
There was to that point, I couldn't agree more. Right. And what you realize is the actual original content is super scarce. And then there will be something there, and somebody will, then like a mass of people will grab onto it.
I just followed this account yesterday. This is basically this guy just breaking down the newest and greatest AI advancements. And from the first video, they kind of click on his page and looked, he was showing how you can, I forget the word he used, but you type in what you want to generate, a video of some lions chasing a gazelle. And within a year, it went from like computerized image, kind of like it was, but it looked like abstract art. Versus now it's like a high-tech image that you almost have to, if you just glanced at it, you wouldn't tell the difference. In Instagram, for like the past year and a half, especially as social media has changed to trying to get you to, social media used to be you followed your friends and you'd scroll and say, there's my friend, there's my friend, there's my friend. And now you're seeing, what people are creating, whether it's a catchy reel or video, it's just not genuine anymore. But I started to see tons of computer generated videos popping up of nature. My Instagram feed is dogs and hunting and this and that. Sure. But I'm watching these videos, and as someone who watches animals every day of my living life, I can watch an animal move. And if it's a computer generated image, just a little off, and I can point out and be like, look at that. But then I was comparing with my friends, and he couldn't tell that difference. And again, that was a year ago. Now it's getting so advanced that people don't actually have to come up with anything original. You can sit in a room and come up with videos and pictures and recreate things that will be eye-catching. And, I got my social media fame on Instagram before there was any... really before you could even post videos on Instagram, and then like when it had the 1 minute limit. Well, I was just posting my day-to-day life, which is much different than normal people, and you got some pet wild animals and dogs and this and that. Well, that organically, without using any hashtags, without trying, it got attention, and there wasn't all these catchy videos being created. People were only posting what they were actually doing. And so it got a lot of attention fast. I'm not sure that if I was 18 years old now, getting Instagram and starting out, if I would gain the attention that I did, just because there's so much other unoriginal stuff that is almost more eye-catching and impressing than the original content.
Right.
But it is definitely a whole different game than when it first came out. And it's interesting to watch it progress at like an exponential speed as things change, and it's just streamlined into engaging people. That's the grand scheme of it all. They just want that engagement and people to be watching.
Right. And one thing that actually, and I help people make content and stuff. So one thing that is very clear that you can do that some people talk about, they're like, look, I'll go and Google whatever field you're in, right? It could be hunting, right? You Google hunting and you look at the top 10 most trending videos, and you essentially rip the content off of those videos. Now, it could be a video where somebody's talking about it. It could be a video where somebody's actually hunting. There could be a background video of somebody hunting and then words pasted over it. There are all kinds of different ways of doing it. But the capacity for people to just take something that has been painstakingly upregulated that
it doesn't even cross their mind. It's there on the internet, so if it's here, it's mine.
Right, exactly. There was this beautiful. The first time I heard it was on Joe Rogan. He had this guest on, and this was years ago, and they were saying that strong men make
weak men. And...
No, it's strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times make strong men. Right, so it's a circle. So like you go from hard men to weak men and then back. So he says it on that. That's the first time I had heard that. I'm like, wow, that's a really compelling thing. And then
you've been hearing it a lot nowadays.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Tony Robbins, sports figures, people are saying it on interviews, and it's just like this profound thing. And again, the first time I heard it was years ago, and it became this popular thing. So now everybody does their own spin on it, as if, like you're saying, as if they owned it or they had the wisdom or knowledge themselves.
It's a great saying, and it's 100% true. But just because we sit here and tell everyone, listen up, folks, here's the spiel. Man, that sounds so great. But what is anybody doing to be what is a strong man? Like, what are you doing? Right. What are you abstaining from that you think might weaken you? What are you engaging in that's going to strengthen you? Or are we just on our phone making some banging reels with some cool music and me lifting weights and this and that? Like, you really got to be involved in your community and be out there talking to people and seeing what can we do to be better, because it all starts on a micro scale. It starts with yourself and your family and your community, and then you can maybe change the world. But if you just say it, and if you're just content to hear someone tell it to you, and then go on about your day, scroll to the next thing.
I don't think anybody listens to that as a call to action. Like, I don't think anybody who's ever heard that saying.
I don't think anyone listens.
Wow, I need to go find adversity. What's the hardest thing I can do?
There is no call to actions anymore. You can't say anything to anybody. I feel like dang near, unless you're in person and like they can, feel your energy in person. There's so many inspiring things that we see on social media, in movies, and they get you feel all good inside listening to it, but then you go on to the next thing and you don't actually do anything in yourself to change it. And I feel like today we're just bombarded with all these, whether it's politics and they're saying, we're headed down this path. Here we go. Here's where we're going with all the, I'm very anti-political myself. I enjoy talking about politics to some degree, but I'm very dismissive of diving in down one rabbit trail because I dismiss
back up.
it as a whole.
What does anti-political mean?
Anti-government, anti-political, just to really know like my worldview, you have to get a little background on me and what brought me to.
I got nothing but time, baby.
Brought me to my current worldview. So I would say the number one thing that set me up on the path I am on in life is I was homeschooled growing up. I'm the oldest of three, brother and sister, and my mom and my dad were just the ultimate parents of being devoted to their kids, and everything they did was for us. And looking back, I see that big time. There was towards the end of my childhood, there was some major family, there was a divorce and some major struggle, and things changed. But through it all, I definitely saw my parents give everything the full effort. Homeschooling, there's different types of homeschooling, and honestly, most of them work. My mom was the type that was very invested in giving us the school experience, and she was very passionate about creating an environment. Like half our house was like a classroom, and like we had desks, and the curriculum was very laid out. And I feel like not knowing it then, but it's just a different upbringing to not be on this tight schedule and away from home and back to home. It was just very laid back. That's where I developed a lot of my passion for animals, let's just say in general. We had dogs growing up. We had my first pet was a guinea pig. I think I must have been like probably 5 or 6. My parents got us involved in 4-H very early on. I'm familiar with 4-H and FFA. So 4-H is kind of like the grade school level where you are basically exhibiting animals to the county fair, which is a year-round process of monthly meetings and setting goals and just doing different things with your animals. Or it can be archery, it can be there's all sorts of stuff. I would say that also really impacted me on my life path, because my day-to-day as a kid was very free. I got to, just a lot of downtime playing outside with my dog and my animals and my brothers and sisters. 2000, not much technology. We had a TV, watched a little TV here and there, but my parents were already kind of on the go outside and play mentality, and that was huge. As I got older, it was just animals. My parents didn't hunt. My parents were from New York. They moved out here just before I was born. Lucky for me. My life would have been much different if I was in upstate New York. But I moved out here, and I'm making friends. They're making friends, and I just was all about the farm animals. My sister was all about horses. Fast forward to middle school, I was raising my own cows and pigs. My sister was showing her horses. We were very involved in sports early on, like grade school to middle school. My dad was the coach of our lacrosse team, wrestling club, baseball. They weren't the type of parents that wanted to get us into something and like be good at it. They wanted us to experience everything and have a good time.
How many years were you on the wrestling team?
So my dad wrestled when my dad was big into sports. He had 3 brothers. And so like any good father, you kind of want to get your kids into some things that you're kind of into. And I can't say I loved it all, but I really enjoyed I remember roller hockey, basketball, baseball, wrestling was we were part of a very big church, and we would put on my dad would put on a wrestling club, and he would structure it like any as far as practices and then do a tournament at the end. and all these kids that I grew up with in church, they're all homeschooled too. We'd all come together, and it was great for the interaction of the other kids. It was great to wrestle, and there's a lot of, all the other fathers that high school wrestled. We really had a lot of knowledge and great coaching within that small group. But it was probably like 50, 75 kids. A lot of good memories watching my dad head that up. But it's things like that where I'm like, man, my dad really is putting in, because when I was busy with work, life was, we're always, let's say lower middle class. Like he definitely had a lot of stress and stuff in his life, getting through life on top of all the things that he was doing for us kids. But we did the wrestling for a couple of years. We did lacrosse for, probably 5 or 6 years. My dad also played lacrosse competitively. My dad's a very competitive person. As in high school, he was always the underdog, very small, late bloomer. And looking back, I could see my dad, I'm sure he's had to ride the bench, and high school sports is all competitive. And with me, I was definitely not the biggest or best kid out there. He was always trying to make sure that I was getting playing time, having a good time. He was always checking on the underdogs, making sure they're having a good time. So
you're shaped almost exactly like I was. I did wrestling. I was like 150
so like we did
pounds,
all these sports,
6'1".
but it's not like we were like rising to the top and like found a love for it. Like you liked it, but
you got exposed to it, you tried it, you enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, great to be exposed to it, but it definitely wasn't my true love. And all through high school, I'm like hunting, reading books. My friends their family's into hunting, so talking about it. So my dad, I kind of want to touch on this part of the story because it's relevant to where we're sitting right now. So my dad worked construction, and one of the projects that he did in probably 2005 was Dry Creek Road out here was a dirt road, and where we're sitting was a ranch, and Hidden Springs had started to go in. So his company was putting in the pipe from Highway 16 or what highway is this?
55.
Highway 55, all the way to Hidden Springs. So my dad was he's a people person. So he goes up to the ranch and says, hey, I'm out here working, got a young kid. We don't know anything about hunting, but you got quail all over here. Can we hike around and shoot quail? And the rancher said, go for it. And so one of my earliest hunting memories is hiking around the sagebrush up here on the hills, shooting at quail with my single shot 410. And we didn't have a dog. Like we didn't know anything. My dad didn't know anything about hunting. He didn't know, where the quail might be. So it was just always an adventure. Never real successful, but like we'd get a few birds and I would be stoked, and that lit the fire in me.
That's so wild that he's working construction. He's like, hey man, can I bring a gun and a couple people and just start shooting stuff? He's like, oh yeah man, have at it. Yes, no problem.
Where we sit now.
Enjoy yourself. And, God bless.
You send me pictures of your boys with the birds. No, my dad was just always willing to. He was always willing to ask, always willing to strike up a conversation. Like the worst someone could say is no. Definitely learned that from him and applied it to my adult life. So early childhood, I kind of got into the hunting. We had my 4-H projects, the pigs, the cows, and there's a lot of training of those animals that involves and getting them trained to be shown in the ring and at the fair. And just got tons of great life experience through all that. High school, so I was homeschooled in the grade school. That church I spoke of, they have a private school. The year they opened, my mom hired on as a teacher, and I went with all my childhood friends to this private school. That was a great experience. In my childhood, I had never been exposed to a massive group of kids in, say, public school settings. So all these settings I was amongst kids I'd grown up with, was very comfortable in. The worst traumatic experience of my school career up until, high school. I punched a kid in the nose one time that was like my bully in 6th grade. I was thinking about that the other day, and that was the worst thing that ever happened. It was just a great childhood for sure. Then
wait, go back to, so you punched him in the nose. Did he stop bullying you?
He did, yeah. It was a textbook situation where
God bless you, sir.
The kid's bullying all the kids in the class, and everyone's crying to their parents, and my dad sits me down and says, all right, son, you got to punch the bully in the nose.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, he's bullying this girl in line. I punch him in the nose, and then everyone's crying, and we're all saying sorry, and then everyone was good after that. But
dude, good for you. Good for your dad. Way to be.
That was another great dad moment where he helped me out there. So then 2012 rolls around, economy crashes. things get rough and rocky for everybody, especially up here in Idaho. That's always like that 2012. It was right before Idaho started to grow. So from 1990 to 2000, Idaho pretty much stayed the same. Grew a little bit 2000 to 2010. I hit high school, and my dad started working out of town, like the oil fields, like Wyoming, North Dakota. I started working a lot. Like in the summertime, I always had a full-time job. I was busy with my cows. But as soon as I got about the time between 10 and 15, when I got my driver's license, my parents moved out to a neighborhood out in north Nampa, and nothing else had been developed. It was kind of this neighborhood in the middle of all these fields and creeks and agriculture. And so we had the family border collie that I trained to hunt with me and was my sidekick, and lived on a bicycle and a fishing pole and my pellet gun, and just ran wild and free like Huck Finn until I got my driver's license. And then my parents were nice enough to give me the old Subaru Legacy station wagon. And man, the times we had and the stories we had in that. But then I was able to transport myself, and then I could really do more with I got my driver's license. My parents said, okay, you can get a dog of your own. That was probably about when my childhood was the rockiest, which it was still all good. But, as a kid, the worst you know is the worst you know.
That's another great, very, very popular saying right now.
Yeah.
The worst thing you've ever experienced is the worst thing you've ever experienced.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all valid. And get this dog, another textbook story where it's like a free parking lot puppy, and it could have turned out to be the worst dog ever, but it turned out to be the best dog ever. Me and my friends, we got our fishing poles and our guns, and we just started exploring everywhere that we could. Gas wasn't too expensive, and we had jobs, so we just started going hard. And at this point, I met Samantha Erickson, another FFA member at a neighboring high school, and I'd never had a girlfriend before, been interested in girls, but she was super cool, so we started dating. And
I love that it's a two-name name. Met Samantha Erickson.
Samantha Erickson.
She was incredible.
I call her Sam.
She kind of liked me.
Everyone calls her Sam, and she's definitely the best. That was a pivotal moment in my life, because right at that point, my life, if I hadn't met Sam, I was getting pretty, my dad's out of town, my mom getting divorced, your typical rebelling kid who's been homeschooled his whole life, didn't really have a lot of life experience in his opinion, and thought I'd been missing out. So Sam really kept me between the lines as best she could, and I still got into some trouble and did the typical young rebellious teenager thing, but really didn't get into any of the trouble I would have. I didn't get into, I wasn't partying with my friends, wasn't drinking or smoking or any of that. But the trouble I got in was more hunting related. Out with my friends, 16-year-old boys running wild, doing stupid things. But luckily, I didn't get caught up with any bad crowd type of situation.
Sure.
So throughout high school, I was pretty independent, hunted every day that I possibly could with my dog, hanging out with my girlfriend, graduate high school. I was working full-time on a dairy. I worked on some feedlots, some dairies. Agriculture is one of the most readily available things for young and experienced workers. And then I got hired on doing some construction for my friend's construction company, and did that for a while. But I was just so used to being pretty free in my day-to-day that I found all I thought about all day was my dogs and my hunting, and couldn't really apply myself to a regular job. At this point, I had trained this dog I had through high school. So I got her at 16 or 15, and now I'm 18. And
what year is this? You're 18?
I'm 18. This is 2014.
Gotcha. Okay. So the economy had kind of tanked a couple years prior.
Yeah, things were kind of slow, but the valley was starting to grow. Things were kind of plugging right along. Basically, when I turned 18, my dad was still working out of town. me and my mom weren't getting along the best, I wanted to move out immediately. So move out immediately. Long story short, 8 months go by, kind of a rocky experience for me,
Yeah, right.
but end up being inspired. I'd kind of been thinking about it. I love training my dog. I knew I loved dogs. I knew I loved animals. Early part of high school, I envisioned myself going to college. Towards the end of high school, I kind of wanted to do whatever my mom didn't want me to do. I wanted to get on with life. So scrapped that idea, started doing the construction, realized this isn't it. Other people were coming to me and said, hey, I have my lab here and I've seen you done good with your dog. Will you do this or that for me? Small stuff. And started thinking about becoming a dog trainer. And it came down to one day me and Sam were, sitting in my bedroom and we're thinking of names that I could call my operation. And we settled on Gem State Kennels. And I just started telling my friends to start telling their friends that I'm training dogs. And it started real slow and got to the point where I was training 5 or 6 dogs at a time. And I told myself, all right, I can do this full time. Here we go. And I remember that's probably one of the biggest jump off the limb experiences I've had in my life being young. Since then, once you do that a couple times, you get pretty good at taking chances and just,
right.
If you're going to make it work out, you can bet on yourself confidently.
Right.
But really thanks to all those people early on, friends and family and friends of friends who were giving me dogs, and I was doing good with them. From that day till now, I've really only operated off word of mouth. The dog is the end product is your walking advertisement. And that really has held strong for me throughout this whole time.
Oh, yeah. When we got Axel, my little French bulldog, back from you, we took him down the street, and everyone on our street was like, what?
Yeah. When you take the little wild, crazy dog and turn it around and make him a civilized, good little boy.
Dude, it was it blew my mind. People freaked out. They're like, is that Axel? How? Who? I was like, I don't know, man. Yeah. You got to call my boy Seth. He's good.
Yeah.
And everyone who sent their dog, like everyone on the street, you grabbed all of the dogs, right?
Yeah,
one after another.
Yeah.
It's like Isla. Yeah. Now you got.
It's such a cool dynamic to get to know each neighborhood and all the people. It's one of the fun parts of my job. Yeah. It's just.
Hey, for real? How's Gunner?
He's good. It's so funny because that's another funny aspect. All the other neighbors ask about the other dogs. I don't know, how's Poppy over there? And for me, this is what I do. This is standard procedure. I get the craziest dog of is nowhere close to the craziest dog that I've trained.
Yeah, right.
And this is just kind of just standard procedure.
Gunner's great, and he's totally lovable.
Oh, yeah,
He's full of energy.
He's a wild puppy.
Wild puppy, yeah.
Wild
he's beautiful too.
Yeah,
his coloring is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember when they got him, right when they got him, we're like, God, that's a good looking dog.
His eyes are all blue and everything.
Oh my God. And he's got that steel, flat steel coat on him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Wait till you
cool.
see him all grown up. He's putting on muscle and he's starting to grow into a big boy now.
I bet. I'm sorry, I interrupted. So
word
of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth. And I started out, I would say, really emphasizing on bird dogs, hunting dogs, and now I've kind of branched into doing a lot of obedience dogs as well as the bird dogs. There's obviously a larger market for obedience dogs. Everyone has a pet dog and needs a little help with their dog. And so that's kind of been my main gig all this time. I've done a lot of, as I've gotten from that point when 2014 to now, done a lot of guiding, hunting, whether it's I've been to Canada a couple times, waterfowl hunting, a lot of Idaho's so cool because we have everything you could imagine under the sun to hunt. So I have what I like best and what I've gotten good at, and done a fair amount of guiding for that as well. But that's always been kind of a side thing. I've always made the dogs my top priority and made sure that they're coming first. I feel that's going to be what I do long term.
Right. It's kind of like your legacy.
Yeah. Just looking forward to supporting a family. You got to make sure you pick a solid one. Maybe not necessarily the most fun, like for example, guiding hunters is a lot of fun, but you got to maybe be away from home. Right. It's hit or miss on weather conditions and animals. Instead of I get a dog, I got to train it. I can do that.
Right. Fewer variables that rely on.
And I do really enjoy the dog training. There's a lot of different aspects of that. It's a lot of fun to just impress people with their dog and make that change, and people are basically able to enjoy their dog more, which is super cool. See them out there at the park or the beach with their dog. They never would have been able to do that before. And then meeting cool people. I obviously meet some crappy people. I got all sorts of funny stories. There's unreal people I've met and dealt with, but then I've met a lot of clients that I've remained friends with ever since that. I met them, and just a lot of really cool people that I've met along the way. And as I interact with people on a week-to-week basis, you get to know them, and it's been a lot of fun.
I love the whole story. I obviously didn't know any of that, and I don't mean to out you by asking this, but like, how does that this all started with you saying like, well, to understand anti-political, you have to understand my backstory.
Right. Okay, so
which is like fine. And again, if that's not something you want to dive into,
that's what I want to dive into.
Like,
where'd my water go?
Oh, I don't know, man.
Well, I got it right here.
And again, like that's wild. I can't imagine what it would be like to be training dogs for the last like 10, 15 years consistently.
Yeah. So I've been very blessed to really be living very independently, solo. Like as a kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't go to my 4 years of high school. I went to a major public schools. I went to 3 different high schools. I graduated from Middleton, but I never got to what I missed out on is wanting, like we were talking about earlier, wanting to conform to a group, wanting to do what other people are doing, fitting in. I missed out on all that. And so now every aspect of my life is totally abnormal. I don't value any of the things that people typically value.
Like what? You're drinking water? You sit in a comfortable chair? Like,
yeah, so my peers, I'm 27 years old. Throughout my 20s, I'm near the end of my 20s now. And, young men go through the stage where, they like fast toys, they like truck, people are just kind of materialistic, especially young people. They want to look good to everybody else, and that's just never been me. I've just been might not have even had phone service, much less hanging out around anybody. Just 100% focused and dedicated to my passions, my lifestyle. I'll be the first to admit that when you have a strong passion or lifestyle for something, you kind of got to make sure you're balancing it, not putting, not lacking in other areas of your life because you're just absorbed in what you do. But I've just found that I've always been happiest if like things aren't going well in my life. I can always, my dogs and the outdoors and the hunting, life's good when that's a part of my life.
But don't you feel like that's a bit of, I wouldn't say that you preface that whole thing with like, I don't like what other people like, but I don't think that's
everyone likes that, but no one knows that they like that.
I mean, that's my point. Like I wouldn't say that there's anything abnormal.
That's human nature. Yeah.
I think that it's more of like, that's like wisdom, which is, look, like for instance, speaking of social media, right? Who is it? Mr. Beast, right? He listened to this wonderful interview with him, on Rogan, of course. And he was talking about, he was like, listen, none of this stuff makes me happy. Like I tried to get a cool car and a couple like fancy clothes. And then I realized instantly, it was like, this is not it. I don't care at all. So he lives in a modest house. He had to step up his lodging because his crummy apartment that he was living in when he was super famous got broken into. He's like, oh, well, okay, this is not a good idea. Yeah. So he stepped up his lodging a little bit, but he still drives like a crappy car. He's like Buffett, like wears normal clothes, drives a crappy car. He's like, the thing that makes me happiest is making videos and doing these things. And I feel like for me, it was education. I was happiest when I was tutoring kids. I was helping kids. I had something to look forward to and I was good at it. And I was all in. So like my wife and I spent our 20s working like crazy people, just educating people. That's all we were doing. And we didn't do any of the fast cars. Obviously, we didn't do any of the beaches on the weekends. We were always working weekends because that's when kids could get tutored. And that, I feel like that served us so well to not lose that decade.
You felt fulfilled looking back on that decade. You thought,
Yeah.
okay, I spent my time well.
Dude, we accomplished a lot.
Yes,
We
you
crushed
learned
a lot.
You helped other people. What more could you ask for?
Right.
I feel like in my 20s, I self-employed.
Right.
I've always been good at, growing up we didn't have much, so never felt like I was lacking anything living simply. And so me and my wife really, in our 20s, no kids, making money, we just worked really hard to accumulate what we needed and then pay it all off. We bought our first house on some acreage and we built it up a little bit. We ended up recently splitting the property. Well, the property came split when we bought it. So we just, instead of joining it, we sold the house for more than we paid for the whole property.
Oh.
Went and bought a big fifth wheel, parked next to our shop, and so now we're camper lifing it. But we own the land, we own all 4 of our vehicles, and we own another camper that we rent to somebody, and we just feel like we set ourselves up well to be comfortable, and things can get rocky in the world, and we're gonna be okay. And I felt like that took a lot of being deliberately planning for. It didn't just all, fall into place. It took having a little bit of money saved up and looking for opportunity rather than just thinking, because man, as a young guy, there's so many times where, whether hunting, anytime you have a hobby, there's always opportunity to spend money on it. At this point, everyone's figured out, someone's into something, there's always some cool toys and gadgets to be added into the mix. So when it comes to the hunting, I've always tried to be very bare bones and what's necessary. Same with our vehicles. I'm notorious for using my possessions, whether it's a gun that I'm not keeping very clean or my truck, which is getting beat up on bad roads. But in the end, I feel like I set myself up for a lot of amazing. I truly feel like I've lived a lifetime in between 16 and 26. I feel like I could, something could happen to me preventing me from doing all the things I've enjoyed, but I could sit here and look back, because every single day I was doing what I wanted to be doing. Whether it's as simple as having a beautiful day, the sun's out, I'm in the yard working with a dog, peaceful, or whether I'm out with my hunting dogs hunting. It's always been, I haven't been anywhere that I didn't want to be for very long. My wife, when we were young, everyone's telling you, you got to get a job, you got to get a career. Like, what are you going to do? She's always wanted to be a mom. She's that type of woman, and careers and money and that never interested her. She got a job with a big corporation doing IT stuff. She's super sweet. Like, she can just be good at anything. She's a good learner. She's wildly successful at the job and moving up the ranks, but deep down she's like, I do not like this work environment. I do not like the professional work environment is not designed for women. It should be. There should be some major changes made to make it more friendly, but it's just not a happy environment for her to be in. So a year and a half ago, said, if this isn't making you happy, like, quit your job. We've set our lifestyle up to where we don't need money. We don't need this certain amount of money every month to cover ourselves. And through some other life experiences, she is going to school to be a midwife. And she's found she loves kids. She's the oldest of 8. Kids and birth have always interested her. So now she has this huge passion for what she's learning and doing. She's going through school. She's got a 4.0. She's at the top of her class, loving it. And so it was really good to see her get to take that jump that I took a lot younger and have that life experience of banking on yourself, saying, like, all right, I'm going to go do this. No one's going to help me there. No one's going to show me there. I just have to go and do it. And boom, immediately, the light at the end of the tunnel is bright. The journey there is enjoyable. Right. So it's been the last couple of years, we've really set ourselves up to be doing what we want to do. And,
did you, if I may ask, sorry to interrupt, did you, and again, personal question, but did you grow up religious at all?
Yeah, so I would love to talk about that. So
the reason I ask is I think there's an aspect, I was talking about this just the other day, the whole fable of Noah's Ark is, it was something that I didn't know, but was driving me intensely from the second I was going to graduate from college. Even before I graduated college, I was worried about preparing, right? Like always preparing, and not just preparing for like next week, but like, hey, if I'm 35 and I have kids, how am I going to be able to not just provide for them, but be with them?
But there's a fine line between stressing too much about the future and, letting it rain on your current day, but being aware of the future is changing. Like you got to be thinking ahead. Right. And I think that ties into my spiritual faith, because you have, I'm able to put a lot of trust that God is going to provide. I truly give God the credit for the position that I've been in my whole life, able to, have the opportunity to capitalize and do the things that I've done. But man, there's been a lot of situations where, things look bleak and grim, and you just really have to trust God. Growing up, so I mentioned I was homeschooled and the private church school. So I went to fundamental Baptist church. And so it was a trip for me as a kid to, went to church twice on Sundays, Wednesday nights. Church was the biggest thing in our lives outside of home. And that was awesome because being homeschooled, I was able to get around not lots of other kids, but quite a few other kids. It was a big church and just other great families. Like I hear, you hear all sorts of horror stories of, kids getting into bad situations around other adults, whether it's school or church or this or that. And all the adults and kids in my life were top notch. So it was just a real big trip for me as a kid to hit that 15, 16-year-old mark. And, my family kind of falls apart and goes down this path that, one, we were told would never happen, and two, we were told like your life is ruined at this point. Divorce and religion do not go hand in hand. So I would say at that point I kind of wanted to, rebel against everything. Thankfully, just the biggest thing for me, especially at this point, I'd really try to just look at the Bible, because that's what I feel that church did and does right. Try to base everything just off the Bible, not some man trying to impart on you what they think you should be doing. Or I got to ask, are you religious at all?
In later years, right? So I didn't grow up. In fact, I grew up very anti-religious. Not that was my design, but that was the people that were in charge of the environment.
So you look at religion,
but now
you just
very
see
much so. Yeah.
you see intense structure in religion, and it's kind of my worldview of being anti-political. I think that man muddles things up. We think that we're going to set something up, and essentially man's always trying to copy God and make something and do something and have their own way, and it just always fails. The bigger it gets, the harder it falls. I look at like modern, not even modern, just religion in general. I believe that Jesus came back to earth and died on the cross. The government killed him. He came down to earth. He had nothing but good things to say.
Killed him, yeah.
He was the answer to the problems.
Sure.
And people in mass are flocking to him. The government looks at that, and you can read the story of that in all the first 4 books of the New Testament. But you find that the government came along and said, hey, this guy is stirring things up. Let's tell the people this and that and get him taken care of. So I feel like that's in a nutshell what happened there. Now I go to church, any church, and I see a huge push on government. I feel that to really believe in God and in order to fully have God in you, you have to put all your trust in God. God is everything. The government's not going to save you. You aren't going to save you. The world is flawed. It's on a path to failure. All you have to do is say, this isn't working. I need God, and I'm going to get through this with God's help. I'd love to tell, this is kind of a long story, but it's crucial to who I am and what I believe. So I go through my childhood, going to church every Sunday and every Wednesday, and, the private school. My parents hit divorce. They quit going to church, so we quit going to church. I start getting rowdy with my friends. Church was the last thing on my mind. Thankfully, I had enough of a foundation that God was still always on my mind. But I'm wondering, what is God? What is life? At say 18 years old, and I go through my early 20s, and I'm able to kind of take a deep breath in the turmoil of my late teens. And I think, okay, my parents are only human. They're not perfect. Like, God is real, even if, the flaws of humans are real. But me and my wife are pretty absorbed in life. Life's going good. She's got her job. I've got my job. Well, she finally gets pregnant. And we were, we were trying. 25 years old. We're like, we need to start having kids. All our older friends are having kids. She gets pregnant. First half of the pregnancy, everything. She didn't want to have. She wanted to have a home birth, number one. So she didn't want an intrusive pregnancy. She didn't want to go to the doctor every week and be getting ultrasounds and this and that. She's like, I just want to wait till my 20-week ultrasound, and we'll start doing stuff then. 20-week ultrasound comes around. We get the ultrasound. She was already pretty knowledgeable, even without the education she's having now on birth and babies. She could see on the ultrasound some problems, and I didn't know, so I'm watching. And we go home, and she didn't say anything to me because she just was hoping that it was going to be minor. Her midwife calls her. She's like, oh, I knew you were going to call. I could see some problems. Midwife says, I got to come over right now and talk to you guys. It was late at night. I was like, oh boy. She comes over and says, listen, looking at this ultrasound, we can see, over a half dozen. She had a list of basically defects that were visible that you could see. And with the amount of defects that you could see, you could make a logical guess that it was going to be a genetic disorder causing everything to go haywire. And the outlook is bleak. So that floored us. Especially as first-time parents, you're still trying to wrap your head around the idea of becoming a parent in 6 months, and then boom, that could, at that point, it could have gone any direction. So obviously we were broken, but that was that day was a pivotal moment in our lives. Our midwife is a very wise woman. She said before she told us the news, she said, there was your life before I give you this news, and after I give you this news, your life is going to be different. So thank God we had the heads up so we could prepare ourselves, and that we didn't, find out the end with a few weeks to go or at birth or something and have to bear that all at once. Man, it was, obviously it was hard for me, but I think that it's one of the hardest things that a woman could ever go through. There's a lot of different options due to our faith. We didn't consider ending the pregnancy, which is what most people would do in that situation, and that's their call, but we didn't feel like that was right for us. We talked to the doctors extensively over the next couple weeks and months, and in 2023, if this was in 1990, 2000, they'd say, pull all the stops, have the baby. Medicine is so advanced that we can get it along. And now after, a decade or two has passed, they've realized that this particular trisomy 18, there is no cure. You can do all the surgeries, but you're basically just trying to like buy yourself time. The children might live to 10. More likely they're going to live to 1 or 2, and it's going to be in a hospital the whole time. So we felt that for us, it was going to be best if we just let things run its course, and just let God do things the way he would have us to go through them. So over the course of those next couple months, it's all kind of a blur, and it kind of was all slow motion, watching Sam kind of go through this. And she's incredibly strong mentally for a young woman, in a lot of ways just soldiered up, and was like, I still want to have a good pregnancy. I'm not just going to lay in bed and cry every day. Let's go out and do stuff. So we did. We live a very active life, and life continued as normal, really just as if it was, nothing was wrong, except when we were together and things got quiet, got hard. That progressed. And then, about a few weeks before his due date, he stopped having a heartbeat. So we went into the midwife check. There's no heartbeat. Go to the hospital. Sure enough, he's passed away. Sam really wanted to have a home birth. You're ineligible to, if complications arise, you're ineligible. Sure. She had an amazing nurse. Her midwife came, the doctors, everything worked out to where we had a beautiful birth. Besides the obvious, it couldn't have gone any better. Through that whole situation, got closer to each other than we've ever been, got closer to God than I've ever been. Really, that situation like that is going to make or break you, with your marriage, with you and yourself. I'm so glad that I had my faith to fall back on and help Sam along with. And that was a great opportunity for me to really think about, God and what he is to me and what our relationship is. I really think it's a lot more simple than religion would have it to be. I think that it takes faith is a hard thing for people to grasp, and people think that with all the proof that we can get for different things in our life or what we see on earth, then we should be able to have some sort of proof if we're going to wholeheartedly believe in this. But I wholeheartedly believe that the second my baby passed away, went straight to heaven. I believe that all babies and children, that before they're real actually conscious of what they're doing, they get a free ticket to heaven if they pass away early. There's a lot of comfort in that, especially as we were, sad and broken here on earth and contemplating the misery and suffering that comes around to everybody. Frustrating because my wife is just the sweetest, nicest human anyone's ever met. Why does this have to happen to her? That life experience as a whole, that's like we were talking about earlier, where if you don't have any experience, you can't really speak with assertion on anything when it comes to sadness and suffering. When you go through it, you realize that there really is nothing to say or do to help make it any better, but just being able to empathize with people gives you an ability to actually be able to help people and do something for them. Some distant family had a tragic accident with their baby, and my wife hopped in her car and drove across the state to go be with this woman who just lost her baby. And there's no one better for that woman to be helped than by Sam, because she really understands what this woman is going through. I always, to kind of give an idea of how much I think that affects a woman, I always tell this story, and it's a story that I heard from Sam, from one of her friends, someone in that girl's family. Their grandmother is very elderly, and dementia has taken hold. She has no memory of anything or anyone. Her own children, grandkids, she lives with them, nothing. But if you bring up that woman's baby who passed away at birth. And this was back in the day when that was very taboo and hush hush, and like it would happen, and they just whisk the baby away. There's no good grieving process that woman got to undertake. But for whatever reason, you bring up that baby, and the lady will break out in conversation and tell you in detail this and that about her experience and her baby. And man, that just goes to show that what a core life event that is for a woman. For the man, losing your baby, watching your wife go through that is terrible as you can imagine, but you really gotta understand how much it affects the woman. Even something as simple as a miscarriage, all too common and swept under the rug, but really that really affects a woman and should be really acknowledged and talked about. But through all that, I really was reminded what's important in life, what I value. And then again, my relationship with God is stronger than ever. And I feel like I'm ready to go through the rest of my life much better equipped than I was before. We're expecting our second baby in May, a few short weeks away. Sam's all about the surprise that she wanted to keep Sylvan a surprise until we found out what was happening. Then we found out his gender, but this baby, she's keeping it a surprise, and everything looks healthy. And Sam's childhood best friend got pregnant at the same time she did. She just had her baby yesterday, so life is good. Like I said, being able to take that experience and be able to keep on moving and take the good and acknowledge the bad has been really, really huge in my life. And again, just really made me understand what's important. Really focus every day on, my wife, my relationship, my job, my close friends, and just trying to be impactful to the strangers and acquaintances I meet. Want to be a good example, and to just be, mindful every day to, try to be making the world a better place. And that's really what is important. But yeah, I just, and I try to be, people aren't very open to talking about God nowadays. It just gets worse and worse, but you can open the conversation by being an example and cause somebody to ask, I see you live your life a certain type of way. You seem to have certain ideals, where does that come from? And then not being quick to say, well, this religion, this identity that I'm a part of, this is why, my faith, but actually go and say and talk deeper about, what I think God is, and, what God's love for me is, and the Bible, and being able to take all the information that I've been given throughout my life from religion and sift through down what's important, spot, what I don't agree with and align with, and just really become my own person as I leave my 20s. But no, in a nutshell, that is that. Anytime God comes up for me, Sylvan will come up for me, because that's such a key part of my life, and I love talking about it. Again, if I'm gonna sit down and talk to somebody and act like I have something to say, I want it to be from experience and from something I've actually lived. That's about all I can offer the world.
Yeah, that. First off, like, what we had soft markers for something similar with our first boy. I remember getting that call, and we were in my wife's Toyota Matrix, I think, and we were just sitting there, and I remember we got this call, and they're like, hey, had the ultrasound. Neither of us saw any, like, we just weren't.
Mm-hmm. There's a little blob on there.
Yeah, and they're like, there's this thing at the base of his, like, brainstem, and it's like a soft marker for this, and if this is a thing, then that's a thing, and then that's a thing, and we went down this rabbit hole, both like in tears. Yeah. And just trying to understand, like, wait, what the hell are you telling me? Because of course there's no, in my experience, different than yours. There wasn't this real compelling, like, okay, this is for sure what's going to happen. It was this odd, this could be happening. And we're like, well, how do we know? Right. Or this could go,
or it could go this way, and you get all that information and you're all of a sudden overwhelmed because you can't, it's like the next adventure book where you're trying to go through all the pages and you're like, whoa.
Right. Which call do you make? Right. And we're like, well, how do we find out? And they're like, well, you can do this test or this test, but the risk associated with doing the test is substantial. Right. And like all of these, and we were like, what is happening? Right. And that brought up a lot of medical ethical issues with me that I've pondered for a long time, because as we have more information,
right,
you bring, like, what's the threshold of risk that you bring to someone's attention, right? Is it, hey, you have 1 in 1,000 chance of something terrible happening, or do you only tell them if it's like 1 in 100 chance, or do you have a dozen things that are like 1 in 10,000 chance? And like, at what point do you stop giving people additional information? But again, as you were telling this story, it's like I so clearly remember that, and just both of us,
even just that scare, and you look at each other, you remember that feeling. You never forget that. Right.
And we were lucky in our case. I finally got a clear answer out of this woman. She was like, okay, it's about like 1 in 1,200. And I get off the phone. We get off the phone. We're both a mess, and I finally get my wits about me. I'm like, okay. Wait. That means we have a greater than a 99.9% chance. I was like, Lauren, I will take those odds any day of the week.
Man, that's the same. So now in this next pregnancy, obviously all that stress is there in the back of your mind, because there's always a chance it could happen again. But you really got to say, all right, whoa. Chances are slim, and that's all you can base your expectations off of. Stressing about it isn't going to change.
It's not going to change any of the odds.
You just got to, buckle down, understand that the chance was there before you knew it and before you didn't know it, and just pray. That's all you can do, and then just live your life and wait for that day to come.
Right, man. That's I don't even know what we were talking about now. Like,
we were just talking about like my worldview, and just how I have got to, because I do feel like I have an uncommon worldview.
No, I feel like, Seth, the whole time you've been talking, it's more of like somebody who has actual priorities, right? Because you're discussing these things, and you're relating these experiences and saying, it really helped me understand what was important. And for a split second, I wanted to ask, like, not fast cars. Like what a reductionist view of the world. That's like, I want the faster car, or I want a better phone, or I want whatever. It's like, how is that actually important? Like you related in passing, in the quiet moment, like when you're with someone that's meaningful to you, and you have this like pause in life, in the moment. It could be an evening, it could be like at lunch where everything just falls silent. What's important then? Is it the Flowmaster on your truck? Like what is it?
Well, everyone can appreciate that and can agree with that, but you have to take a step back, and some people have been lying to themselves for a little while, so they have all this pile of stuff that they focus on in life, whether it's material objects or hobbies or this and that. But in order to take a step back and really question yourself and say, hey, am I doing this right? Have I been going about it all wrong this whole time? It's a lot easier for someone to argue that, no, this is what makes me happy. Like, that's cool that you're good with that minimalist lifestyle, but not for me. Whereas that person say, all right, I'm going to try that minimalist lifestyle. I'm going to try to, put all this stuff I'm consuming away and just try to, cultivate my relationship with my significant other or my kids or, parents. I'm not a parent quite yet, but I'm about to be, and I just see so many other parents are distracted. Looking back at my parents, again, early 2000s, there wasn't all the media to readily consume as there is now, but man, there was just, my dad wasn't working. We were fishing, hiking, just doing stuff with us, and I could see that, life wasn't super rewarding for my parents, especially my dad. He got a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment that carrying him through the rest of his life, knowing that all that time spent and all that focus into what really mattered, he did he did the right thing. He was a good dad, and now he can be at peace with whatever else happens in life because he did what was necessary when he was young and when he was in that position. And I feel like it's just so easy to be distracted nowadays. You can be distracted with a million different things, the touch of a finger, and everywhere you look. It's easy to look around and see everyone else is distracted and just fall into that rhythm. But it takes a lot of, again, deliberation to really be able to separate yourself from that and just see the bright side of things.
Do you in your hunting ever come to points where it might be through exposure or just sheer exhaustion or get to a point where you're essentially stripped away of your capacity to care about distractions? Because the reason I ask is I find my greatest moments of joy in the world, I'm obviously around my family, but even enjoying them, come at the height of exertion. Right, like when you're
in the moment, whatever that moment is for you, whether. But
it's not even in, like some people call that in the zone, right? It's not even in. It's literally when I'm so tired. Like there was this mountain. We used to live at a base of a mountain. I'd run up the mountain, right? And so I'm hours in, and it's like 100 degrees outside, and I'm running, and I start crying. Like I get hysterical, and I'm by myself. Nobody can see me, so I don't care. Yeah. Not that I would care anyway. But I find myself, I would get so stripped of my capacity to give concern and attention to anything else that the only thing that mattered became my family, my ability to keep moving forward, and like this moment. I couldn't care about tomorrow. I couldn't even care about hours from now. It was like this moment is, and like what's important in this moment. Okay, my wife, my boys, like this second.
Putting yourself into whether you mean to put yourself in a situation or you come about it and you're uncomfortable, you're in a struggle, you could be having a good time, but when you come away from that and you step back, all the chemicals in your brain are designed to be giving you these good thoughts and these good feelings, and you're satisfied, and that's definitely a time when you're on a natural high, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people, at least when I was in my 20s, and it sounds like you're experiencing that, you see people when, peers of yours in their 20s, that it's like they start out their adult lives seeking ultimate leisure and like luxury, and they want things to be easier, and they want all of this just distraction. And for me, and again, my wife, and it sounds like you in your life and with your wife, it's kind of like that we had singular missions, and those led us to deep, meaningful fulfillment, caused extreme, fatigue at
But points. You went off, in those situations, you went off the paved road, and you went down a little side trail, and you bumped along, but that was where you found the best in life. And, after Sylvan passed away, Sam had quit her job, and I reined back on my deal, and we just took some vacations. But instead of taking your typical vacations here or there, we would just load up the truck, throw some dogs in, just like, we're going to go to the coast. And we go to the Oregon coast, and then we end up driving up the whole coast, the Washington coastline, come back down up through Olympic National Park, and the day starts. We're like, I don't know where we're going to be tonight or where we're going to go. We're going to sleep in the back of the truck, like just on an adventure, putting ourselves out there at life already. Obviously, we'd been reduced to our core values and what really mattered. And we have the best of times and adventures, just getting off the paved road of what you knew was going to happen next. And just not knowing what's going to happen next, knowing that you don't, you can't ready yourself for what's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to happen. You're just going to have to work through it as you get along. And we've gotten, not addicted to that, but we do find a lot of enjoyment in that. Last year we went to like 17 different states. We went to Hawaii for the first time. Some of our good friends gifted us a stay in their condo on Maui. So, since I've never been to Hawaii before, we probably never would have gone to Hawaii if it wasn't for our great friends and this opportunity. So we rent when we go on vacation, Sam looking through the Turo. It's like you rent a car from somebody.
Yeah.
They rent you your car. She finds like this beat up older Toyota Tacoma, and we roll into the hotel resort. Check it out. Like, all right, this is cool. This is nice. We put 800 miles on that Toyota on Maui. We went to the highest point, lowest point, around the whole island, sleeping in the jungle, exploring waterfalls, and just as we're going along, every single person we meet says, "Oh, where do you guys live?" Like, nobody thought that we were tourists. We just had that vibe about us, and we had the best time. We were there for 10 days, and then we're like, all right, we got island fever. We've been everywhere. We got to get back to Idaho. But I think that was the last vacation we went on. We found out that Sam was pregnant again on that vacation. She thought she was, but she waited to take the test till we were out there. And just getting yourself out there, taking a leap of faith, doing something that you might not know what happens next. That's when you're going to really find yourself and know who you are.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You're not going to find out who you are just eating Cheerios on
No,
Saturday.
just going, connecting the dots, going down the road. Yeah, you gotta, get out of your comfort zone, just like they always say. But just like we were saying earlier, you hear all I can tell you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to take leave of faith. You got to do it. But the only one that can actually do that is you. And, you can be inspired, but you got to actually take action, do it, whether it's small steps or big steps. But, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to find out who you really are. Even if you're not successful, even if it doesn't go smooth, the best thing another life skill is having a good time when things aren't going right, or at least, keeping your mind mentally strong when things aren't going right. You're going to be able to accomplish so much more out of life.
Right. And also, you also have an unusual capacity for humility when you do something out of your comfort zone. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I did this thing out of my comfort zone and it was so great and it was so awesome. But that's actually not as valuable as like, oh, I did this thing out of my comfort zone. I suck at that.
Jiu-jitsu, you get some guy with an ego. He's been successful his whole life. Like, oh, I'm going to go try jiu-jitsu. And he goes out there and he's just getting beat up. And man, that's the best thing for that guy to struggle at something, to suck.
To willingly do it, because we don't.
For your kids to watch you. How about, I was just thinking about that. For your kids to watch you go and suck at something. Say, all right, kids, watch me go out here and suck. Laugh at me. See me struggle and fail. And get back up and say, "Oh, that was awesome! I learned something."
It's the getting back up. It's all, and so rarely do adults expose themselves to that kind of vulnerability individually, but then in front of family or in front of their kids. I was talking to a friend, my friend Chris Mitchell, recently. She was like, yeah, a couple years ago I tried to play guitar. I was terrible because I was telling her how I've always really liked chess. My boys joined the chess club. I was like, that's it. I'm like 41. I'm really learning chess now. Yeah. Right. And I got my chessboard over here and the wife got me chess pieces for my birthday. Your kids
are sitting around playing chess. Like, that's such a simple thing, but that is huge. Me and my dad and our brothers and sisters, like, we would watch TV. We played checkers and we graduated to chess. And it's not, who cares how good you are at chess? It's just that you and your son and daughter are here engaging in this age-old game of chess. That's priceless.
Yeah, and more than anything, you come to a point where you realize, okay, what's the last thing I actually tried to get good at? And you realize, like, you were 18, right? Like, nobody in their 30s just takes a step and they're like, I'm going to try to get really, really good at this one thing, because we reduce our daily activities down to only the things we do well.
You could ask some people over 18, when's the last time you sprinted? When's the last time that you ran fast? People spend 10 years and not even run fast. Let's do something they aren't good at.
Right.
And like with the hunting I've tried all different sorts of hunting. Idaho has it all, the hunting, the fishing, and I've definitely found what I like best. And, doing it daily for an amount of time, you get good at it, and you're like, all right, this is what I like to do. But it is pretty fun to branch out and go try something new and, try to expand your repertoire of skills a little bit.
Yeah.
And, again, remind yourself that you're not the expert. That's another thing. People start doing one thing. They do, like, they get good at something, like, all right, I've mastered this. Listen up, folks. Let me tell humanity on how to be like me. Well, just like the saying, the good man is a terrible father. You could have you look back at the Greek philosophers and this and that, and there's some of these guys that had the greatest things to say. Some presidents of the United States had the greatest things to say, but then you look at their family or their sons, and your son's a reflection of you. This guy's in shambles. His dad was over here telling the masses, this and that, and we're still quoting him, but his own son fell off to the wayside and led a life of ruin. You can do all the things right and miss a few small things and miss the whole mark.
Right.
You really got to be self-aware and make sure you're doing it all, and not just patting yourself on the back for the couple things you're doing right and think that that's going to make up for the rest of your shortcomings.
Right. Like David Goggins is, in my mind, a very, very good example of that. People love Goggins. I mean, stay hard. The whole thing.
Yeah.
But, and you don't hear, when's the last time you heard about something Goggins did positively in his interpersonal relationships? Right. He's been married several times. He has, a couple kids from different people. All these different things.
It seems like all the sports stars and everything, like when you look at their life, you're like, all right, this guy physically, mentally, like he's got it. But, what's behind the curtain? What are you doing when you're not in front of the phone screen? Is this lifestyle that you're leading obsessively on this path, is it hurting the other things? Because your mental and physical health looks real good, but we just don't know. And so that's why for me, I try to not follow or consume anything from these talking heads, because again, you can be hearing the right words can be coming out of the mouth, but if the mouth and the person speaking it is a hollow vessel, then it doesn't matter. It matters who's saying, it matters where your information is coming from, and people just don't understand that. Yeah. It's kind of like religion. You can go and the pastor is telling the congregation these great things, and people are feeling it, and this is great. But when it comes down to who is this man for real, he's has tons of personal problems, and nobody can be a good example and really, tell people what they need to truly hear if they're not living right themselves.
Right. Kind of like the screwed up therapist.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's dinner time for me. Speaking of priorities, I gotta get home to my 3 boys.
That was awesome. That was such a
Seth. I have so many more questions for you. We're gonna have to do.
We're
gonna have to do round 2.
See what people think, and if they want to hear more. I mean, we didn't even touch on half the cool things I can talk about, but that's me.
I mean, but what a just brilliantly unpredictable conversation.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was great. Listen, thank you. Please, let's schedule round 2 in another couple months. We'll get in summer. You'll get your baby. Everything will be squared away. We can talk about those first couple months.
Maybe you can get my wife in here and get her talking too.
I would love to talk to Samantha Erickson.
She has Samantha Simpson now.
Simpson.
Yeah.
There we go.
She's got a lot of cool things to say. And she can probably tell you about me, maybe even better than I can tell you about me.
Yeah. I would also like to, honestly, my wife and I had a doula, and we, several of our boys were delivered with midwives, and just the industry around birth is such a crazy thing. And
she's passionate about that. I won't even begin to comment on that. But yeah, it is, for me as a guy who's uneducated on it, no idea, seeing, what's mainstream, what Americans especially, like their view of birth and how they give birth. Then you go to the whole rest of the world. There's America, and then there's how the rest of the world does it. And the rest of the world does things old school, how it's always been done since humans existed. It's healthier, it's better. Everyone needs to hear. It's kind of like the raw milk thing. It's just a bit of good news that everyone should hear.
Right. And I think there is some benefit to like real extreme interventions and possibilities.
For sure. Without Western medicine, like they both have their place, but Western medicine, birth is natural. Your body's designed to do it. We have this perception that it's intense and painful and crazy, when in reality, a lot of the situations where that's happening is in a hospital room where, there's a lot of other factors that are heightening the situation. Where you see a woman give birth in a quiet place where she's comfortable. It's a beautiful, calm thing. Like our friend just gave birth yesterday, and it was indescribable how calm, and it's just like you wouldn't think it actually happened. Like, boom, there's a baby. There's no screaming, crying, nothing, just nothing but calm aura to the whole situation. But yeah, it's a really,
wow, man, good for her. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm really excited that she's going to be the one telling me all these stories, being a part of that, being a part of these amazing, the best moments of people's lives. She's going to be the one facilitating that and bringing that along. So that's going to be rewarding for her, and I feel like she's going to have a lot more life experiences to help people with.
Yeah. It's those moments obviously have really stuck with me. So yeah, sure. I'd love to speak with her. But anyway, Seth, thank you for making the time. Thanks for the
invite. Glad we made it happen.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, buddy. Quick shout out to our sponsor, C2 Social. C2 Social is the leading expert in social media marketing and creative marketing. They have fantastic platforms. I have been a client of theirs for some time. I cannot recommend them highly enough. C2 Social for all of your social media and creative marketing needs.
Can you still recall